Hello, it's Lion here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we'll be doing another comic book review. Today we're going to be looking at Unbreakable Red Sonja by Jin Sub, Giovanni Valletta, Adrian M. Garcia, and someone else I think, but I can't remember who it is because I didn't write it down, right? So Jim Sub is someone to look out for. He is doing the new Conan run for Titan Comics that's coming out soon. And Giovanni Valletta sounds familiar, but I don't really remember what they're doing. They might be the ones that are doing the new Red Sonja series. I'm not really sure. I think their names sound similar, but they're not the same person. So if I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments, right? But here we have Unbreakable Red Sonja. It's a 5-issue miniseries. And honestly, I'm going to say it was not my favorite, but it wasn't really that bad once I read it all in one go. So we have issue number 1 with Lucio Parrillo's artwork. Number 2 again. Number 3, probably my favorite one. I just think she looks really, really good like this. Here's number 4. I like it. And number 5. Although, honestly, even though the scene is really good, there's really nothing to do with the comic book. And I guess they don't really have to do. But it kind of sucks, right? So, I don't know. I would prefer, I actually really do prefer when the comic book covers have to do with what's happening inside, even if the art style is different, right? So, there you go. That's what they look like. I do apologize for the glare. It's just I have a big window next to me, and there's no way to to change that without affecting the lighting of my video, right? So yeah, it's published by Dynamite. It's a Teen Plus series. Obviously, it's a sword and sorcery series. That is the genre for it, and it does kind of have this like meta feel to it. So I guess you could say that there is a certain level of multiverse aspects to it. So if you want to count that as a genre, feel free to do so. I don't really think so, but it is kind of a meaningful thing to notice or to note, and I don't really know where else to note it, so I'll note it here. It does not have an adaptation, and honestly, a Red Sonja cartoon or animated show or whatever you want to call it would be pretty awesome if they made it for adults, and I think that would work really well. But honestly, maybe it's not really something that's in the cards, even though I really wish it was, right? So. Yeah, right off the bat, the rating for this is a 3 out of 5, which is not completely horrible, but honestly, in my scaling, where most things are about a 4, a 3 out of 5 basically means that I didn't hate it, but it's very unlikely I'll ever reread it. And honestly, I think that is, fully correct for this. And the real reason why I am still going to keep this in my collection is for those very beautiful Lucio Parrillo art, covers, because I don't really think there's enough meat on the bones of this story to really satisfy me if I already read it more than twice, right? So, yeah, the premise of the story is that Red Sonja finds herself meeting a young version of herself, and now she has to keep her safe. And so we have another Red Sonja story following immediately after Mirka Andolfo's that has this kind of like Lone Wolf and Cub type feel to it. If you don't know what that is, Lone Wolf and Cub is a very classic Japanese manga that has a grown man taking care of his young son, and they're going on adventures together where the man kind of has to deal with the fact that his job is not pretty and dangerous, and his son is part of that job, and it's kind of weird and kind of scary, but it's pretty meaningful. A lot of modern things are kind of based on this. Most things with Pedro Pascal basically are Lone Wolf and Cub stories, and apparently so are most stories with Red Sonja nowadays. So that's the general premise of this story. However, there's a secondary story in this series that really doesn't feel like it should be there. It doesn't connect at all. But there is a reason, or there has to be a reason why young Red Sonja meets old Red Sonja. So they have to have the secondary plot line, but they don't ever truly connect with each other. And it's kind of like unnecessary for it to be there. And honestly, I think this is because this was supposed to be a longer story, and it just got cut down when sales weren't that high. I don't know if that's actually what happened, but that kind of feels like it was what was happening here. And that kind of sucks, right? So let's talk about the plot line here. I don't think it's that bad, but it's not particularly interesting. It is a little bit boring sometimes. And especially, it really felt boring when I was buying them individually, right? When I was buying one every month or every 2 months, because, the periodicity of Dynamite is not that great. They're not very good at keeping their deadlines. But what was I saying? So, yeah, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't, great. And it's not really that amazing. And I think that is mostly how I end up feeling about most Red Sonja stories, and I still end up buying them because I really like the character's design, and I really want it to be interesting. And, you know, month to month, I can justify $4 on a comic book, even though it does add up into a lot of money that I really should be spending on something that brings me more joy than Red Sonja, right? So it is what it is. So there's two plotline here, and like I said, they're more or less unconnected. They're pretty unrelated, but they do have to force into connectivity. Otherwise, there really is no reason, no impetus for the main draw of this story, which is Red Sonja and young Red Sonja, right? So there's this woman called Tendra, and she wants power. She is so focused on this that she basically fucks up the timeline very, very badly. And she forces a young Red Sonja to appear in the current Sonja's timeline. And so we get these two women connecting and finding each other. And then you have that Lone Wolf and Cub type story where Sonja has to beat her younger version, then take her under her wing, then travel together, and then they end up fighting Tendra's zealots. But there really is no connection between old Sonja and young Sonja. There really is no reason why they even end up together, or no value in why they end up together. And Tendra's story is completely separate from Red Sonja's until the very end, where they end up fighting for some very odd, contrived reason that really doesn't end up making too much sense even internally in the world. But it ends up having this very kind of meta, you know, you're all just puppets for these gods that are the gods of your gods, which are the authors, and this kind of like slight like circle jerk thing that the authors are doing to each other in these types of stories, where it's like, oh yeah, we're gods of these characters, which honestly is kind of concerning that you know, these people think like that. But there is kind of poignant moments about the way that characters, as in people and characters and stories, are formed by these very specific, meaningful moments in their lives. And even if they forget about them, they are still intrinsic to them. So there are moments like this that are very, very good. It's just that the two plot lines don't make sense when they're, you know, talked about with each other. Like, they don't fit in the same sentence. And this metaphysical, like, you know, we know that these are just stories, so let's play into that angle, is kind of getting old. And the final battle is good because it is Red Sonja with the spirit of Scathach, I think, which is this, I think she's a Thuathan, which are the gods from Gaelic mythology. I'm not really sure. I'm pretty sure she is. And she was this kind of like warrior princess with like some sort of vampiric power to her. But I'm not really sure, because the only time I've ever seen Scathach as a character was in this YA series called The Secrets of Nicholas Flamel, or The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel. And in that one, she was this kind of like warrior princess with vampiric powers to an extent, right? So that is my full knowledge of her. If that is not correct, I do apologize, but that's as much as I know about her. And so we're seeing Red Sonja with her god character fighting against Tendra with her god powers. And so you have this situation where they fight and Sonja wins, of course. And then we kind of reset to the basic status quo so that we can have this circular storytelling once more. And it was all right, but it wasn't amazing. In terms of characters, we have Tendra, Red Sonja, and young Sonja, and there really isn't too much going on for them. There really isn't anything meaningful about the interaction between Sonja and young Sonja, so there really isn't any character development, and the Sonjas are really the only character that exists, because Tendra is just more of a plot device than a character. In terms of world building, we have Tendra, this person that was obsessed with being a god, this magic that she has that fucks up with the timeline, and then she goes back in time and kills gods in order to take in their godly power and also to take in their worshippers as her own. We see that Red Sonja or the young version appears for no reason, and that there's this god who is Sonja's patron, which of course is a Scathach, like I said. And the artwork is not bad, but it's not really my favorite. I think the coloring makes it worse than the line art is, And I think that happens a bit too often with Dynamite, and it kind of sucks, right? So it is what it is. In terms of fan service, there really isn't any. Yeah, ratings wise, 3 out of 5. It's a story that didn't really get well set up, but didn't really go anywhere, and that ultimately feels like it needed 5 more issues to go, but it didn't really get them for some reason, and it's kind of disappointing, right? So that's all there is to say about Unbreakable Red Sonja. Let me know if you guys have read it down below. Let me know what you thought about it, and thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.